no evidence at this time that the reported drone sightings pose a national security or a public safety threat, or have a foreign nexus.
Now, what you just heard from the White House, that is supposed to calm people's nerves about those drones flying around New Jersey, but does it make you feel better when police officers, mayors, pilots are all saying that they've seen these drones, that they are huge, and that no one knows where they are actually coming from? I'm Gadi Schwartz, and this is Stay Tuned Now. You know how a lot of people don't trust the government, and it's usually because they hear the government say something that's so disconnected from what people are living through that it just boggles the mind. Well, today, the White House is now telling us that after weeks of people seeing drones flying over their homes in New Jersey, elected officials seeing them, police trying to chase them down, what is being seen isn't drones, but planes.
To the contrary, upon review of available imagery, it appears that many of the reported sightings are actually manned aircraft that are being operated lawfully.
Can you make that make more sense? Because I think people in New York and New Jersey see drones the size of an SUV over their house every night and think that that doesn't make any sense.
Certainly I understand why people would be looking at this and being concerned about it. We're concerned about it too, which is why we have the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI, my goodness, looking at this, and we're taking it seriously.
But are they concerned? Are they taking it seriously? Ryan Nobles has more on this game of drones.
Tonight, as mysterious drones continue to pop up in the skies over the East Coast.
Now it's hovering over my other neighbor's house.
Lawmakers in Washington are growing frustrated that the Biden administration isn't explaining what they are. You see the internet's running wild with conspiracy theories, and do you feel like the administration needs to fill that void?
Well, I think they should get out something as quickly as they can.
Theories are running wild about what the flying objects may be. One New Jersey congressman said they were being launched by an Iranian mothership off the Atlantic coast. The White House today saying an investigation is underway, but there is no cause for alarm.
Right now, there's just no indication that this is some sort of foreign malign activity or, in fact, even criminal.
Adding the objects being seen in the sky aren't even necessarily drones.
It appears that many of the reported sightings are actually manned aircraft that are being operated lawfully.
And while the Pentagon has said they aren't military drones and they do not come from a foreign threat, senators like New York's Kirsten Gillibrand are demanding more information.
We cannot simply say, well, they're not causing any harm. Well, do we know that? What are they doing? And who's sending them?
Yeah, well, let's bring in Tony Perry, the mayor of Middletown, New Jersey. We've got on the phone. Tony, Mayor, you were meeting with state police yesterday. They said, yes, this is happening. At least they acknowledged that it was happening, but no, we don't know where it's coming from. What's your reaction to seeing this from the White House today?
Well, I still have a very serious concerns because it seems like every elected official at whatever level of government from the Fed down is unable to get the information necessary to be able to keep their residents safe and secure. And unfortunately, it is our responsibility, and the lack of communication that we're getting from the federal government says everything I need to know. They have been slow to acknowledge that this problem exists. They've been slow to respond to the needs of local mayors, county officials, state representatives. And when we sit here and are asking for support and asking for help, I cannot believe that it has fallen on deaf ears from the White House and from the federal government.
And Mayor, it seems like, and look, this is just from this vantage point, but it seems like some of those are going to be planes. Maybe even the majority of them are people getting confused with the fog or something like that. And yet the small number that are alarming are drones, as people are describing them, large SUV-style drones. And yet feels like the White House and a lot of officials are saying it's fine, it's just planes, and discount not been requested to assist with these events. Northern Command, I mean, they are the ones that would know. They have high fidelity analysis capabilities.
When it comes to dealing with this issue, it is simply disturbing that the number one job of the government at whatever level it is to provide safety and security for its residents. And they are failing at that right now. They have been failing at it for some time. We are begging for the resources. And the characterization that these are mostly planes, the colonel and head, the superintendent of the New Jersey State Police said yesterday in our intelligence briefing that was provided to not only lawmakers, but mayors at every level, and today was given to chiefs of police, that 180 drones have been confirmed over New Jersey. Now, if there were 180 drones over the U.S. Congress or over the White House, maybe we would get a different reaction to this. But the fact that over Naval Weapons Station Earl, which is one of the Atlantic Ocean's largest and deepest ports for naval ships that carries munitions to every naval vehicle and ship in the Atlantic Ocean, when 2 confirmed drones are flying over that, we discount it by saying, well, the public is confused and they're confusing these for small aircrafts. That's not a real answer, and that's not what the leadership we are asking for as mayors and as elected officials.
So they're saying no confirmed drones. You're saying you are being told very directly over 100 confirmed drones. And in fact, I believe I heard you talking about one instance in which possibly a state police helicopter was hovering over one of these drones. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Correct. Yeah. Colonel Callahan, the superintendent of the New Jersey State Police, told us in our intelligence briefing yesterday that he called off the state police helicopter that was pursuing one of these drones due to safety concerns. So again, I'm just confused as to why the White House and the Defense Department is saying that this is a massive mischaracterization of small aircraft when Naval Weapons Station Earl, which is a U.S. Navy base here in Middletown in Monmouth County, New Jersey, when they say, yeah, we had 2 confirmed drones hovering over Naval Weapons Station Earl, but the White House goes in front of a microphone and says, well, no, this is a mischaracterization. I think we're taking it seriously as local elected officials, and I wish that the White House would take it as seriously.
Yeah, and I know you're taking it seriously, but what do you tell your constituents, the people who live in your town, when they come and they say, Mayor, like, what the hell's going on?
Well, it's incredibly frustrating. I mean, I have told them to continue to report these drones because the only way to get the federal government to take action is by continuing to confirm that. Now, while today's announcement was the amount of drones over the Leonardo section of my town over Naval Weapons Station Earl is unbelievable at this moment in time. So I'd love for President Biden and for the White House to respond to that because we are on the ground. We are dealing with this.
I'm sorry, you're saying that it's happening right now. The sun has set there and the drones are back out and we still don't know where they're coming from?
As we speak, there are drones. While you and I have been on the phone, I have gotten upwards of 10 text messages saying that there are drones currently flying over their heads right now.
What do you think would get to the bottom of this?
Let's shoot one down, and then let's see where it comes from. And then let's get to the bottom of it. Let's stop with the inaction that we're constantly seeing. Let's stop with the dismissive attitude that I have seen constantly for the last few weeks to say that there is no imminent threat. Until you tell me where these drones are coming from, until you know the origin, until you can prove that by having one of them in your hand, that is an imminent threat to the safety and security of my residents and every single American, because if it can happen here, it can happen anywhere.
Yeah, it seems like such a contradiction. Everything is fine. You were safe, no threat, and yet we have no idea where these are coming from. Mayor Tony Perry, thank you so much, and keep us updated as to what happens out there tonight. Thank you.
You got it. Thank you.
And right now, somewhere in this country, there's someone trying to figure out what to do now that their health insurance claim has been denied. And on the other end of that, you've got health insurance workers probably feeling very anxious and nervous after a health insurance executive has been shot dead in the street. And that is where we are as a country. And today, investigators say a mother of 3 In Seattle, an electric road sign there was hacked to make threats against healthcare CEOs. In New York, it was posters plastered to street lamps, all threats that authorities say they are taken seriously as NYPD builds their case against the accused shooter.
This is exactly what we mean when we talk about a contagion effect, that all of the foment that you're seeing online and these posters that are being put up is meant to instill fear. Our concern isn't people's opinions about the health insurance industry, about CEOs. It's criminal activity that may emerge.
As for the suspect, Luigi Mangione, his lawyer is trying to get him out of the Pennsylvania jail where he's being held while fighting extradition back to New York, which might not be for several more weeks. George Solis joins us now. George, let's start with the jailhouse meeting between Mangione and his lawyer. What happened and what are the chances of him getting out of jail at all before trial here?
Yeah, hey, Gadi, good to be with you. So that was the big question today, whether or not the defense attorney, Thomas Dickey, would meet with his client, Luigi Mangione. We have not been privy to any of the conversations that they may have had, but we do know he filed that writ of habeas corpus, which is basically contesting the bail that was denied here in Pennsylvania. So we know that that is now set, a trial date for that is set on December the 30th. However, he also has another hearing here in PA for the 2 felonies and the 3 misdemeanors in Pennsylvania. That hearing is set for December 23rd. Of course, all of that hangs in the balance as we await this indictment, this formal indictment coming out of New York for that extradition hearing. We heard from Governor Kathy Hochul saying that they are working on an ironclad case. They want to make sure all of their T's are crossed and their I's are dotted before moving forward, before she files what's known as that governor's warrant that Governor Josh Shapiro will sign to begin those extradition proceedings, Gadi.
And we've been trying to figure out if Mangione had any direct connection to United Healthcare. Our friends over at WNBC, I know that they got some information on that today. Let's take a quick listen.
Was United ever his insurance company, and is that at all a reason or a motive for him targeting this specific CEO, allegedly?
We have no indication that he was ever a client of United Healthcare, but he does make mention that it is the 5th largest corporation in America, which would make it the largest healthcare organization in America. So that's possibly why he targeted that company.
So it sounds like, I mean, is he going off of like a top 10 list here, or what's the motivation?
Yeah, Gadi, we actually have some new reporting, courtesy of CNBC from Bertha Coombs, saying that United spokesman confirms that Luigi Mangione was not a UHC member. In other words, he was not insured by United Healthcare. But keep in mind, when you talk about the evidence that authorities say they found with him outside of that manifesto, that spiral notebook, he mentioned a CEO. So it is unclear at this point whether or not he meant to target Brian Thompson, or if he was just sort of the right place, right guy in a way, if you will. We do know that he did arrive in New York 10 days prior to carrying out this alleged shooting, and that he did know when this conference would take place. And again, that's according to some reporting from our own Jonathan Dietz in there in that interview. But again, there's still so many questions, and investigators are still combing through an avalanche of evidence. We are just starting to see some of those pieces come together, including a bit of that timeline of where he was in New York, including new information letting us know that initially when investigators thought that he had gotten on a bus near the GWB, the George Washington Bridge, for those that don't know, and may have fled back down to Atlanta, there's new reporting indicating that he may have actually gotten on a subway and made his way back to Penn Station and possibly boarded a train to Philadelphia, maybe Pittsburgh, before ultimately ending up here in Altoona, Pennsylvania, Gadi.
Wow, that's all new information. So that would seem to suggest that he was in view of a whole lot more cameras than we originally thought, right?
That's precisely right. And again, I think investigators are now starting to put all of that forensic information together. Obviously, they're following not only the online trail, but all of these camera trails that are starting to be put together. So again, as this investigation moves forward, we're definitely looking at a potential mountain of evidence that will be put forth. And again, this is probably what Governor Kathy Hochul was alluding to in terms of making sure they have that ironclad case before they begin those extradition proceedings, Gadi.
George, thank you. And rap superstar Sean Diddy Combs has found himself in some more legal hot water. New lawsuits alleging rape and sexual assault, this time from 3 men. NBC's entertainment correspondent Chloe Malas has that story.
Hey there, Gadi. Yeah, earlier today we had this big NBC News exclusive where this New York attorney named Thomas Giffra, he filed 3 different civil suits on behalf of 3 different men who are his clients, and they're all remaining anonymous. They're going by John Doe in these lawsuits. They all claim that these incidents took place between the years of 2019 to 2022. They each claim that they were sexually assaulted during separate incidents by Sean Diddy Combs. And earlier this week, I sat down with one of those accusers. He said that he had worked for Combs for several years running errands, and that he was owed thousands of dollars, and that he went to Combs in 2020. He met him at the Intercontinental Hotel here in Manhattan, and he went to go try to get paid. He said that he had a couple sips of a drink, and that after that, he fell asleep on a couch because he was so tired. He said the next thing he knew is he was waking up to Combs allegedly sexually assaulting him. Take a listen.
When I finally kind of came to, I could feel myself being humped, and I could feel I was penetrated. And, you know, I'm still kind of like groggy, but I'm kind of coming out of it. He's behind me, penetrating me. And I'm like, hey, like, what's... And the thing that sticks in my head today, the phrase that just rattles in my brain all the time is I'm almost done. Just stop moving. I'm almost finished.
So, Gadi, we've reached out to Combs' legal team for comment, and they released a statement denying the claims. I mean, they've denied all criminal and civil claims against Combs, and they said that they're going to file sanctions against not just this attorney, but all attorneys who are filing these lawsuits, because they say that all of the claims, that they're just completely false. You know, when I spoke to the attorney, I asked him about how does he know which cases to take on, because we've seen over a dozen civil suits get filed against Combs with all sorts of allegations throughout the years. And I said, how do you corroborate it? Talk to me about your process. And this is why he took on these cases. Take a listen.
They were all very consistent, frighteningly consistent. He would lure people. He would hit them with the drinks, knock them out, and the next thing that all 3 of these guys, same thing. They'd wake up and he'd be raping them.
Meanwhile, all of this is going on amid New York prosecutors. They're continuing their investigation into Combs. So currently he's behind bars, as you know, at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. He's awaiting that criminal trial that's set to begin on May 5th here in New York. But there is a chance that prosecutors, they could bring a superseding indictment. I've been in the courtroom multiple times over the last couple months, and we've heard prosecutors say that they are continuing to bring evidence before a grand jury, that they're continuing to talk to alleged victims and witnesses. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. And remember, he fought multiple times to get out on bail ahead of the trial, and it was denied 3 times. So again, you know, these individuals, they're brave for coming forward. Obviously, it's their word against Combs, and you see that a lot in these civil cases, as you heard from Thomas Giffra. But again, Combs is denying all of the accusations against him. Gadi?
Chloe, thank you. Meanwhile, as the status quo gets ready for a new president, oh, how the tables have turned. Guess who is on the cover of Time Magazine's Person of the Year again? Donald Trump, who celebrated in his hometown of New York today, ringing the opening bell at the stock exchange. And tech companies that used to be shy about politics, not so shy about congratulating him now. Amazon's boss, Jeff Bezos, plans to donate $1 million to Trump's inauguration. We'll tell you who else is coughing up a whole lot of money for the inaugural fund in just a minute. But speaking of the inauguration, guess who Trump might have just invited?
Mr. President, for the pool, who else have you had the opportunity to invite to your inauguration?
Well, I've invited they won't accept it. Everybody I've invited.
President Xi as well?
Very good relationship.
Dodging Von Hilliard's question a little there, but right after that, his new press secretary said yes. In fact, he did invite China's President Xi, but Xi has not RSVP'd yet. Garrett Hake joins us now. Garrett, I mean, frenemies? Is this like a power play? Is this like a art of the deal statecraft? Is tariff still his favorite word? Like, what the heck's going on here?
I think you're getting close here, Gadi. My wife loves the Real Housewives franchise, and this kind of has that feel to it, a little bit of like a social power play dynamic. You invite somebody who maybe you don't really want to come, but if they come, they're on your turf. If they don't come, it's a snub. And part of what Trump's foreign policy was about in his first term was to keep everybody guessing about what he really thinks and what he might be willing to do. And this has that same kind of feel to it. It's not doing things the traditional way, not through the traditional channels, kind of setting the Chinese back on their back foot, going, what is this guy thinking here, and what does this mean for his promise for tariffs? So I think it's highly unlikely President Xi is going to be coming to Washington, but I do think this is the kind of thing we should all get used to seeing from Trump as we enter another 4 years of a Trump White House.
Yeah, and maybe also getting used to, hearing something that may or may not be hyperbole and then seeing something else today. Like we already see some people saying he's managing / revising expectations on his promise to lower grocery prices. What's going on there?
Yeah, this may be a situation where political promises are colliding with reality quite early. I think the best way to explain this is to play the way Donald Trump talked about high prices at the grocery store during the campaign and compare it to what he's saying now. Here's what candidate Trump said about this issue.
On my first day back in the Oval Office, I will sign an executive order directing every cabinet secretary and agency head to use every tool and authority at their disposal to defeat inflation and to bring consumer prices rapidly down. We'll do it very rapidly.
Big step, big dramatic action, big promise here. But in the interview that accompanies his Time Person of the Year designation, Trump said that it's not going to be that simple. The quote is basically that these prices go up, and once they go up, it's very hard to get them to come back down. Now, he still says this is the kind of thing he's going to try to address, but he acknowledges here that this is going to be very hard. Somewhere, Joe Biden is reading this interview going, yeah, this is what I've been talking about for the last 2 years, Gadi. And I think it is a recognition from the Trump team that it's not as if he's going to come back in on January 20th and all of a sudden, milk and eggs and gas are going to look like the prices were back in 2019.
It'll be interesting to see when Biden gets around to that, because today was another big pardon day for Biden. What's Trump saying about the pardons he's going to make?
Yeah, this is interesting. So he was asked again about pardoning people who were convicted of crimes related to January 6th. And once again, as he did in his interview with Kristen Welker over the weekend, Trump really leaned in. He said it's not only something he would do in the first hour, it's something he would do in the first couple of minutes. Clearly, this is a priority for him. It's a priority for some of his voters. But I have to tell you, Gadi, some of my own reporting on this today with some of our colleagues, we'll get this hopefully over the finish line tomorrow, suggests that it may not be a huge universe of people that he's going to be able to pardon. He wants to start with nonviolent folks. They don't want to be in a situation where they pardon somebody, let somebody walk out of jail who's on tape, beating up a police officer with a flagpole. So the process for how he does this, I think, is going to be very important. And we'll see exactly how big that number is come January 20th.
Yeah, we'll let you get back to the crystal ball. Garrett, thank you, bro.
Thanks.
And as we just mentioned, today we saw President Biden really leaning in, being pardoner-in-chief just 2 weeks after pardoning his son Hunter. Today, the president made the largest act of clemency in a single day ever, commuting the sentences of some 1,500 people and pardoning more than 39 other. And he might just be getting started, because he's apparently looking into more clemency petitions in his final weeks of office. Now let's bring in Gabe Gutierrez, who has more on this big move by the Biden administration. So, Gabe, all of this comes just after he pardoned Hunter Biden. What's the motivation here to go so big?
Oh, hi there, Gadi. Well, the president had been under pressure from advocates to do this, especially after that bipartisan criticism that he received, as you mentioned, for pardoning his son Hunter. Now, the president's saying that America was built on the promise of possibilities and second chances. And yes, as you mentioned, 1,500 people, around that number, they had their sentences commuted, and they had been placed on home confinement during COVID. And in addition to that, the 39 people were pardoned as well, Gadi.
I don't know how you kept your train of thought there. It sounds like they're coming for you, Gabe. These 39 people that he pardoned, can you tell us a little bit more about them? Were any of them violent?
Well, no. They were for nonviolent offenses, and I should point out, it never fails, right, Gadi? The ambulance sirens right as you start talking. But there are 39 people pardoning, and they range in age from about 36 to 75. About half are men, half are women, and they include some stories, including a decorated military veteran from California. There was also a nurse from Texas who led disaster relief efforts, and also an addiction counselor from Colorado, just to name a few. Again, these are people for nonviolent offenses. Many of them were drug charges, and Democrats had been urging the president to take a closer look at mass incarceration, and he's made it a point of talking about criminal justice reform. So this was a way of showing clemency to people he felt deserved that second chance, and some wanted that their criminal records basically expunged, Gadi.
And I guess turning the table around to people that don't have a criminal record, there's been a lot of talk of preemptive pardons for people like Jack Smith, Anthony Fauci, Senator Adam Schiff, that Trump may see as enemies. Any word on that?
Well, we don't have any word on exactly when that might happen. But yes, as you said, two sources familiar with the discussions tell NBC News that the White House is considering those preemptive pardons. But we are hearing from the White House that the president is expected to issue other acts of clemency before he leaves office in a couple of weeks. And Gadi, that is pretty common. You remember there have been other instances where presidents have been signing pardons up until those last few minutes before they leave the Oval Office. But in this case, we don't yet know for sure who will receive those so-called preemptive pardons. We know that some names that had been under consideration, as you said, Dr. Anthony Fauci and also Senator-elect Adam Schiff. But the White House has not told us exactly who it might be. Gadi.
I have a feeling we have a very wild month ahead. Gabe Gutierrez, thank you. And don't go anywhere. We are just getting started. Up next, too much snow is slamming into the Great Lakes in the Northeast, and it's not the kind of fun snow where you build snowmen. It's more like a state of emergency, and there is way more on the way. Plus, we got strange drones in the Northeast, but that is nothing compared to a wild recording of UFOs in Oregon forcing pilots to dodge out of the way. We're taking a closer look at what that is all about. And in all the trends that take over social media, drinkable mayo, that's not on my bingo card. Well, it wasn't until now. More on that later this hour.
Like a 6? Oh! No.
Hey, welcome back. Big time snow and a major chill coming up. But first, here are some of the headlines we're watching tonight. We already know that Elon Musk is the richest man in the world, but apparently he's taking it to the next level. Bloomberg reporting Musk's net worth is now over $400 billion. The jump being fueled by SpaceX skyrocketing in value. And Meta has cut $1 million check to President-elect Donald Trump's inaugural fund. Not a huge shocker after the CEO marks. And a New Jersey politician has been busted for faking his Spotify Wrapped. Last weekend, Congressman Josh Gottheimer posted on his X account bragging that his list was filled with Jersey native Bruce Springsteen. People quickly noticed, though, the inconsistencies between Spotify's visuals and Gottheimer's post, and they called him out, and the politician then admitted it was a fake list. His real one now had Drake and Taylor Swift, which he blamed on his kids. And breaking tonight, snow and ice bringing chaos in parts of the Great Lakes. Look at this.
Will he be able to flip it over?
County us at the 80.
Oh my gosh, so terrifying. Incredibly, the sheriff in Michigan where this happened said no first responders that you see just jumping out of the way there were hurt, and the driver of the truck only had minor injuries. Meanwhile, heavy snow returning to upstate New York and Pennsylvania, extreme lake effect conditions creating travel emergencies. We're talking up to 3 feet of snow expected to pile up through tomorrow.
Snow, especially to like near blizzard conditions.
And that's still coming down tonight. NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns is tracking all of it for us again. Hey there, Bill.
Gadi, this was pretty intense for a short period of time. This snow was just falling way too fast, and people got stranded. People got stuck, and then the plows can't clear the roads, and it just, it's just a ripple effect. And, this amount of snow in 24 hours, Western New York is as good as anywhere in the country at clearing snow. But these snowfall rates were so intense. I mean, we had many areas between 2 to 3 feet of snow. Orchard Park, you should know, that may sound familiar. That's home of the Buffalo Bills, so they'll be shoveling that stadium out. And this is localized. Erie only got 4 inches and Buffalo 2 inches. All these are called the Snowtown south of Buffalo, and that's who got nailed. And it's not over with yet. We still have a snow band. It's not wide. It's only maybe 10 miles from north to south, but it's still over this area south of Buffalo near Hamburg. I just showed you like Orchard Park, and here's where Orchard Park is located. Still additional snow, especially heavy up around Lackawanna. So this is enough to produce another 1 to 2 inches per hour until it dies off later on tonight. 3 million people still under lake effect snow warnings here from Ashtabula up to Buffalo, but I showed you where the worst of it was. Later on tonight, we're going to see that heavy snow developing off of Lake Ontario, and this is really going to nail the Tug Hill Plateau, where we could see a widespread area getting a foot of snow. Isolated totals here could go up to 18 to 20, and that's in addition. This area has already picked up 1 to 2 feet, so they're going to end up with some hefty totals. Where I just showed you that snow band south of Buffalo, only an additional 3 to 6. That is expected to weaken later on tonight. So then the story is just going to be this continued cold flow coming down. It was a very bitterly cold day in Minneapolis, Duluth, all through Wisconsin and Michigan. Chicago wind chill of 1. This is going to be sliding into the northeast. So we start tomorrow morning off with a wind chill of 18 in New York City, Pittsburgh at 13. It moderates a little bit during the day, but it's still going to be very cold all the way through Saturday morning throughout this region. The next big weather event is going to be coming onto the West Coast as we go throughout the weekend, especially tomorrow night and through Saturday. We have a chance for some heavy snow, really from about central California northwards, the northern portion of the Sierra Mountain chain. The Cascades aren't going to get a ton of snow out of this. The heaviest snows will definitely be around the Tahoe area. So here's how it's going to look. A lot of rain with this storm system, too. Not a ton of cold air with it. That's why we're not only seeing snow at the highest of elevations. And then that second round comes in as we go through Saturday. So how much are we talking about here? The highest rainfall totals from San Francisco northwards, widespread 2 to 3 inches, isolated up to 4, and the snow levels where if you get up there where it's high enough, locally up to 2 feet. So that's welcome. It's been a little quiet in the west lately, and Gadi, we're happy to get a little additional snow and rain for areas that need it.
Yeah, we'll take it. Bill Cairns, thank you. And coming up, an 11-year-old girl is safe now after surviving 3 days at sea, clinging to rubber tires where she was found. Coming up ahead. But first, you got to see this. A snowboarder was just shredding down a mountain in Lake Tahoe, recording the gnar when out of nowhere, that's a bear. A bear came barreling right at him. He dodged out of the way, but the guy right behind him was not so lucky. Boom. No one was hurt, and the snowboarders even shared a fist bump over the epic moment. Look at that. But guys, you gotta be very careful out there. We'll be right back. Hey there, welcome back. Here are some of the stories happening out west that we're following right now. Selena Gomez is engaged. And if that's music to your ears, it's because Benny Blanco is behind the beat. She announced it on IG with a big old rock and a caption saying, "Forever begins now." And her comment section, it's just filled with all the who's who of planet Earth. The 2 cats out here in LA County might have died from the bird flu. Officials are saying they drank raw milk that had recently been recalled after the bird flu virus was found in some samples. Now, the investigation is still going on, and people who came in contact with the cats are now being looked at closely for any symptoms. And a woman in California was shot and killed by her 2-year-old. Police say it happened last week after her boyfriend failed to properly keep the gun in a safe spot. He's now facing felony charges of child endangerment and criminal storage of a firearm. And here in California, they are finally starting to lift some of the evacuation orders that massive Franklin fire saw, which is now about 20% contained, with firefighters getting some help from a little bit of rain and a lot cooler temperatures, which comes as such a relief to the 6,000 some people who had to evacuate. NBC's Dana Griffin has more from the ground.
Gadi, the change in weather has been such a significant help for firefighters still battling the Franklin fire. Right now, we've got that cool onshore breeze bringing some much needed humidity to the area. So those Santa Ana winds have died down. Officials say the fire is now mostly burning in remote areas. They've actually downgraded many of those evacuation orders. So you're seeing people return, and they can do so by presenting their ID card. Right now, 4,000 acres have burned, 20% containment. That is pretty significant when we talk about fire terms, because it's not just about putting out all the flames, but it's building a line so that the fire doesn't reignite. And when you get up to 20%, that is a really good sign. Officials say it could take several days before the fire is officially out, and they are still working to determine the cause of the fire. You've had thousands forced to flee, including celebrities like Dick Van Dyke. He invited us inside his Malibu home to share his harrowing story of survival, even showing us on his Ring surveillance camera the moment that residents, 3 of his neighbors, came in and helped him from the backyard through his house and got him to an SUV so that he and his wife and their pets could evacuate. Listen.
I don't think I would have made it. And I also came back, and my little guest house had started to flame up in the back. They put that out, so they saved my life and my fire.
Wow. And your house.
Yes, and my house. God bless them, and thank you for saving my life. They risked their own lives by staying. You know, they could have run for it, too. They managed to get out also. But that kind of humanity is kind of rare today.
He's also crediting firefighters for keeping the fire at bay. Only about a couple homes burned in his neighborhood. He's lived in that home for 40 years, and there's about 70 years worth of memorabilia inside that home over his decades-long career in showbiz. His wife was just so gracious to show us some of the items inside that home. And again, he's just super grateful to his community. So many people came together during that really scary moment. And luckily, no lives have been lost in this fire, Gadi.
So nice to see that national treasure alive and well. Dana, thank you. And coming up, an American has been found a long way from home, reportedly found wandering the streets of Syria after being released from captivity and all that chaos. Richard Engel has the latest. Hey, welcome back. Let's take a quick look around the world. South Korea's president says he will not quit despite calls to resign. In a defiant speech, President Yoon said once again that he had to impose martial law last week to protect democracy, adding that there are anti-state forces in the opposition party. Lawmakers will vote for a second time on Saturday to impeach him. And if you love mayo, do you ever wish you could just drink it? Well, in Japan, now you can, and rumor has it, it tastes terrible.
This is called nomumayo, which directly translates to drinkable mayonnaise. The best way to describe the taste is it's like spoiled mayonnaise watered down and then mixed in with vinegar.
Let's try. Oh no.
Just do yourself a favor and stick to regular mayonnaise.
Okay, so the company behind it says it's a mayo-style drink, whatever that means, but it is a great stocking stuffer. And off the coast of Italy, an 11-year-old girl rescued after 3 days at sea. She is the lone survivor of a shipwreck, and the girl was on that boat that left Tunisia carrying dozens of migrants. It sank during a storm, and the sea migration route that she took is in an area that is one of the most dangerous in the world. And the UK is permanently banning puberty blockers for people under 18 years old. Officials say a study found weak evidence for transition care for minors. Any minors currently taking puberty blockers will still be able to continue their treatments. Some doctors and lawmakers back up the ban, while others are worried about its consequences. And turning now to Syria, where an American man who says he was held for months by the Assad regime is now free. NBC's Richard Engel spoke with him and learned how he ended up there.
As we drove through Damascus looking for information about missing American journalist Austin Tice, suddenly a video appeared online. An unidentified group claimed to have found an American who'd been held by the former regime. We immediately contacted our sources. Information is coming in piecemeal. The latest that we just heard is that, yes, an American was found, but not Tice, a different American who'd been traveling in the region on some sort of pilgrimage. He was in a small house packed with rebels, aid workers, and journalists. And there on the floor was Travis Timmerman from Missouri. As I pushed in, I knocked our microphone, making it buzz. Was it been 7 months you've been here?
Yes, I was in prison for 7 months. But it's been okay. I'm on a pilgrimage, and that's when I was arrested.
Timmerman says he crossed into Syria from Lebanon without a visa. What did they do to you once you were picked up?
I was interviewed to see if I was a political actor, but then they cleared me, essentially, and then I was just held in prison. I wasn't beaten or anything like that.
Timmerman was freed on Monday when the rebels overthrew the government and broke into jails to free political prisoners. He was found today walking barefoot and alone.
Last night I slept outside, and then the night before that I slept with a friend, and the night before that I slept in an abandoned apartment.
You been in touch with your family?
I haven't, but I plan to do that when I can.
I was excited, but I was hurt.
Late today, we spoke to his mother and stepfather back in the U.S.
You always want your kids safe. You know, I don't know if he's safe right now.
You said this was a religious mission. Was this sort of like following in the footsteps of Jesus, the road to Damascus, that kind of thing?
I've heard the word of God.
He was taken outside to cheers. Now a free man after his religious journey met the harsh reality of the modern Middle East. Timmerman says he didn't see any other Americans while he was held in captivity and knows nothing about Austin Tice.
The modern road to Damascus. Incredible reporting. Richard Engel, thank you. And what's happening in Syria is also a huge deal in Israel. The IDF has been taking advantage of all the chaos there to start bombing weapon stockpiles and Syrian Navy ships to prevent them from falling into the hands of rebels. Meanwhile, there is renewed hope for a ceasefire deal with Hamas that could free hostages being held in Gaza. NBC's Raf Sanchez is covering it all for us in Tel Aviv. Raf?
President Biden's national security advisor, Jake Sullivan, becoming the first senior U.S. official to visit here in Israel since the fall of Bashar al-Assad in neighboring Syria. The situation in Syria, obviously one of the main topics of conversation. Israel has moved very swiftly, very aggressively since the regime fell there, carrying out hundreds of airstrikes, destroying remaining stockpiles of Assad's biological and chemical weapons, but also pretty much destroying every piece of major military hardware in Syria, attacking fighter planes, helicopters, destroying most of the Syrian Navy. Sullivan indicated that the U.S. is comfortable with that. They believe that Israel is taking out threats, destroying weapons that could have fallen into the hands of extremists. But Israel has also sent ground forces into what was a buffer zone between Israeli and Syrian positions, and now sent Israeli troops into Syria itself. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that this is a temporary measure. It's designed to stop the chaos in Syria spilling over into the Israeli-controlled Golan Heights. I asked Sullivan, does the United States believe Netanyahu? He said, look, we take the prime minister at his word, and the expectation is that this is a temporary measure and that Israeli forces will withdraw once a new agreement is in place with this new rebel government in Syria. They also talked about the prospect of a ceasefire deal that would end the war in Gaza, bring relief to Palestinian civilians, and finally bring those hostages home after more than 430 days in captivity. I asked Sullivan what has changed given that these talks appeared to be so badly stuck. He said the recent agreement to end the fighting between Israel and Hezbollah in southern Lebanon seems to have breathed new life into these negotiations. He said Hamas is showing more flexibility now that the fighting in Lebanon is over. And whether a deal can be done or not, he says he doesn't know, but that he does believe that we are closer now than we have been. He also said, encouragingly, that the Biden administration is working with the incoming Trump administration to try to get this deal over the line and get it finalized before Trump is sworn in on January 20th. I'll send it back to you.
Raf Sanchez, thank you. And before we go, it is time for the future of everything. And Apple is using the power of AI to bring you AI-generated emojis. Your group chats are about to get a whole lot more interesting or weirder if you're into that stuff. Plus, commercial pilots in Oregon reported spotting way more than just a bird or a plane in the sky with them. Was it a UFO or was it something else? Well, wait till you hear what the control tower says. That discussion coming up ahead. And tonight in the Future of Everything, we are tuning into some pilots as the control tower tells them to, fly around a UFO. It is weird, and it's coming up in just a sec. But first, let's take a look at some big AI moves by Apple. They just announced more on their AI supercharged iOS update that could put the power of things like ChatGPT straight into Siri. Oh, yeah. And Genmojis, they're about to become a thing. Basically, you just type a description into the emoji keyboard, and you'll see a Genmoji made just for you. Also, in the world of AI, OnlyFans models are using AI impersonators to keep up with their DMs from their fans. They create responses like a real model would, and the market is heated up as demands from models have skyrocketed. A lot of companies are competing for the bid, and the CEO of one company said they've got around 6,000 customers. And while lately we've been talking a lot about drones and UAPs and mysteries in the sky in New Jersey, let's take a trip back in time to 1947. And no, we're not talking about Roswell 1947, but 1 month before, when a pilot named Kenneth Arnold took off from Washington on his way to an air show. And as he flew over Mount Rainier, Arnold says he saw 9 bright, shiny, saucer-like objects flying in formation across the sky, some weaving side to side like a kite. Well, guess what just happened in the Pacific Northwest? Some 80 years later, some pilots just saw something very similar. And this time, there is audio of their conversation with an air traffic control tower. Take a listen.
We're seeing 3 or 4 targets. They're all altitudes, up and down. It's pretty crazy.
We're not seeing anything. Getting lots of different reports out there. Some at 30, some all the way up to 50,000. About 3 or 4 different lights. Does it look like they're around your altitude now?
No, there's one way up high and one about my altitude, moving in like a circle, like a corkscrew pattern. Just had another one show up about my 1 o'clock, about 1,000 feet high, zipping towards us and then back out towards the ocean. It's red in color, moving at extreme speed.
Roger. You are cleared to maneuver as necessary, left and right, to avoid the UFO out there.
Avoid the UFO out there? That's coming from the air traffic controller. So what could it be? Well, joining us now is co-founder of Americans for Safe Aerospace, Ryan Graves. 50,000 feet, Ryan. You were part of a squadron that saw some weird things out on the East Coast. How dangerous can things be? And what's your reaction to hearing, just, navigate around the UFO casually uttered by a traffic controller?
Well, honestly, I'm actually happy that they are actually reporting it to the FAA. For a long time, pilots didn't even want to broadcast this out over the radio for fear of the stigma and ridicule that's associated with it. But, I think we've learned over the past few years that this is a very consistent thing that's been happening to pilots. They are seeing things not just way up in the sky, potentially in space, but things that seem to be exhibiting very strange maneuvers and capabilities right in the atmosphere with the aircraft themselves. And whenever you have an unknown object like that, that's a safety risk for pilots.
A safety risk for pilots, especially if they're moving around rapidly and they're able to go 50,000 feet or higher very quickly, right? I mean, look, on the East Coast, people are seeing things, they're calling those drones. On the West Coast, you have reports like this. And then all around the country, there are reports that come in every single day. Do you think all of it is related, or are we looking at distinct things here?
Well, unfortunately, I don't think we really know quite yet. The cases that we've been seeing in New Jersey, although not any one single video seems to be extremely anomalous, when you step back from the whole and take a look at the historical context off the eastern seaboard, from Virginia Beach to the Langley Air Force Base to now up in New Jersey and even New York, we see a pretty startling trend of a repeatable pattern of unidentified objects that seemingly are exhibiting long flight times, long loiter capabilities, and are coming from unknown locations, potentially somewhere over or in the ocean. And those aren't my words. Those are the words of one of the senior Republicans at the hearing 2 days ago when they were questioning about these drone incursions over New Jersey.
And so now that the stigma seems to be going away, like step 2 seems to be to do something about people just shrugging when it comes to things like this. I mean, they get brought up and then we're told it doesn't pose any threat when there are no answers on where they're coming from or where they're going or how they're able to stay up for so long. Why are people so comfortable with this?
Well, I would push back a little bit and say that the stigma is certainly still there. I've been very disappointed to hear the language from the Biden administration, from the Pentagon, essentially telling people that they're not actually seeing what they're seeing. There's been 3,000 reports to the FBI on this issue. And the Biden administration seems to be gaslighting the American people into telling them that there's not really anything to be concerned of. Well, people are concerned, governors are concerned, mayors are concerned, families are concerned. And I think it's time that they have a level conversation with us about what's going on, and we can take a hard look at some of this antiquated drone legislation that we have and laws that really prevent us from getting to the bottom of this, because we're at a stalemate here. If this was an adversary, they'd have all the time in the world to take advantage of this situation.
And obviously some of those are going to be misidentified actual planes, right? But like you're a little bit more familiar with the capabilities of the U.S. military. Like, do we have the capabilities to figure out what's going on here?
We certainly should. We have some of the most powerful radar systems on the East Coast for tracking ICBM missiles, enemy aircraft, as well as all the capabilities localized at bases themselves. So I do believe that we have the capabilities to be able to actually understand what these are, but there seems to be this strange stalemate where the government simply can't find the information and they can't assign any type of threat level or origin to these objects. And that alone, I think, is something our adversaries will be taking careful notes on.
Yeah, it's something all of us should be thinking about. Ryan Graves, thanks so much.
Thanks, Ryan.
And that's going to do it for us tonight. I'm Gadi Schwartz. We'll see you here tomorrow. But until then, stay tuned now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.